Hey Rick, I got a very exciting question for you today.
What's that, Mark?
What do you believe is the opposite of love?
I'm pretty sure it's hate, isn't it?
Well, that's a great answer if you're talking about emotions. But in our context of creating health and wealth for retirement, I want to give you a different perspective on it. So think about our topic. Now, what do you believe is the opposite of love?
I'm not sure. We're going down an interesting path, but I'll play along. So what's the opposite of love as it relates to health, wealth, and our daily choices and actions? What is it?
I believe that the opposite of acting out of love is acting out of fear.
Well, that's an interesting concept. I'm not sure I understand. So tell me more. What do you mean?
Well, Rich, in this episode of Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement, I'm going to show that the results, the physical manifestations of our lives are based on whether we primarily act out of love or whether we primarily act out of fear.
Wow. Yeah, okay. I'm curious now. Tell me more. Let's keep going.
Well, we want them to listen to the episode. So this is episode 25. It's called Fear versus Love. And if you as a listener listen, when this episode is over, you will know how to live and act out of love to create what you want, as opposed to living it and acting out of fear to hold on to what you already have, because it often gets you exactly what you don't want.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. This is for those who don't just want to retire, but want to live a fun, travel-filled, strong, and decades-long retirement. Your hosts are Rick Collins, the financial expert who will help you build the wealth you need to retire with confidence, freedom, and zero stress. And Mark Dulaney, also known as the Health Millionaire, who will help you build the health, strength, and mobility to actually enjoy that wealth. Because let's be real, what's the point of financial security if you don't have the health to enjoy it? This podcast is for you if you are about 50 and up, have worked hard, saved smartly, sacrificed, invested wisely, and now want to lock in your future with the health and wealth you need for a great retirement. So, listen up, because the best years of your life should be ahead of you, not behind you. In every episode, Mark and Rick break down the health, fitness, and financial strategies you need to create a thriving retirement. One that's strong, mobile, financially secure, and most of all, fun.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. I'm Rick Collins. I'm the money guy, and this is Mark Delaney.
And
Say hi, Mark.
And I am the health guy. I want to help you retire and have a decades-long retirement full of fun, travel, and loving your grandchildren.
That sounds like a worthwhile effort. So you had a question about what's the opposite of love, and we started talking about love and fear. I need you to help me explain that. Let's delve into that and help me understand.
So we as humans have two primal, literally within our bones and structure in our framework, primary emotions, love and fear. And both are necessary for us as humans to create the life that we want to live and to survive. The problem that we have is we don't often use them appropriately. Now, I think you have a dog, right? An overweight pit bull.
I've got a 95-pound pit bull, yes. He's a lap dog with a weight problem.
I've got two parakeets. I've had dogs and cats, and animals don't have the advantage the way we do of love. So mostly everything they do is out of fear. And as a result, they don't necessarily thrive. They become dependent on us. We have the ability to love. And in this episode, Rick, I want to help you, and I want to further help myself and anyone understand that where your life is successful, where things are the way you want, it is because you're acting out of love. Where you are struggling, where there is turbulence in relationships, where you're not taking care of your body, you're not taking care of your money, you hate your career, but you show up anyway, you're primarily acting out of fear. And my goal for this episode is to get people to evaluate whether they're living out of love or living out of fear and make that transition to living out of love because I believe that's the best tool they have to truly create health, wealth, and love, both in the short term and in retirement. Said a lot, Rick.
Wow.
What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it reminds me of a George Carlin routine from the 80s. I'm old enough to remember George Carlin. He started talking about the lizard brain and how if you're making decisions with your lizard brain, it's life or death. What do I do to keep from getting eaten today? And we've evolved to live in that fear. And sometimes that makes us make choices that are comfortable or at least not uncomfortable enough to make us want to change. So I think this is going to be an interesting conversation.
So I want to go with something that's easier to see love versus fear behaviors in a relationship. Rick, you and I talk, we do a mastermind together, and you and I almost every week talk about my roller coaster relationship with my lady. And so if you would indulge me, something happened a couple of weeks ago, or maybe this couple of weeks ago from the time you would hear this, in that my lady did something and I didn't like it. And rather than out of love talk to her about it, I waited until the worst possible moment, and out of fear, I attacked her about it. And that caused a lot of turbulence in the relationship. And so when you think about relationships, are you trying to create more love, closeness, intimacy, or are you acting out of fear to keep them from leaving you, or to stand up for yourself, or to stand your ground? Rick, any thoughts on that? As you think about your marriage and your past relationships and all relationships, do you think that most of your decisions are out of fear? And if that is true, how's the relationship turn out versus out of love? And how does that turn out?
You know, it's interesting that you asked me because I've been the poster boy of doing marriage wrong for a long time, and I finally figured out how to do it sort of right, or at least less wrong. And it's interesting when I'm living in fear, making decisions out of fear. It's pain avoidance. I'm trying to avoid negative consequences such as failure, being alone, being abandoned, feeling foolish, being rejected, whatever that fear is. And that keeps me in a safe space. And it's what I think is safe is, well, if I don't take any risks and I don't make myself vulnerable, if I'm not real or relevant or raw with somebody, they can't hurt me. And that doesn't help relationships grow and flourish because each person is got walls up and they're pretending to be something they're not. They're not being genuine. They're not being fully present. And that detracts from the overall relationship experience and ultimately often dooms it to failure.
So another aspect of that is, and I say this to especially to young ladies or women in general, people make the worst possible relationship decisions and choices when they're living out of fear. I think that most, and not, I can't say all, one night stands, when a woman gives herself to someone that they probably shouldn't, that accepting abusive relationships, a lot of this is out of a fear-based relationship philosophy. I want to hang on to this person. This person is good even though they treat me badly. And, I have a daughter who's 33 years old, and I don't want her to make any relationship decisions out of fear. It is better to be alone than to be with someone who's going to abuse you and treat you like crap.
Yeah, I work in a recovery ministry and I often talk to people who are gone through some stuff and their spouse has, cheated on them. They've done drugs. They've been physically abusive, verbally abusive, and almost with certainty, their answer is, it's not that bad. If I don't have him or her in my life, I don't know what I would do.
Yep.
And so it's fear of being alone or rejected, or sometimes it's fear of not feeling worthy, or, I can't replace him, so I'm going to stick with the abusive person.
So I'm going to give one last thought to this idea of fear in relationships, and we're going to talk about our topic of health and wealth for retirement because we want to be true to our audience. But I will just say this to you. If you do not see yourself as being special and worthy of a special person, then every decision you make in relationships is going to be out of fear, and you're going to make some of the worst relationship choices you could possibly make. So ladies, gentlemen, whoever's listening to me right now, when it comes to relationships, you are worthy. So make a decision based on love that you want to create, not fear of what you want to lose. Any last one sentence thoughts on love and relationships?
a lot of people will tell you to face your fears or feel the fear and do it anyway. And I agree. It sounds easier than it is, but overcoming your fears, or at least recognizing your fears, is the gateway to happiness.
And not making decisions based on them. That's the caveat. So let's talk about wealth and health for retirement. And I think that if you look at commercials for financial success and health success are all based largely on fear. If you don't take this pill, you're going to be in trouble. If you don't manage your money with us, you're going to go broke. If you don't buy this, you're in trouble. And I do not have a fear-based method of helping my clients start working out to improve their bodies. And Rick, I talked to you for a while. I know you also feel the same way. You do not have a fear-based financial structure to get people to be your client.
Yeah, I will educate people about the risks to their finances. And there's 5 of them that most people don't know about, 3 of them, but it's not about trying to instill fear. I'm just making people aware of this is what's out here. Let's take a proactive approach to build that retirement in a safe manner that you can't lose money, and then you can still spend your money whenever you want instead of waiting until the IRS tells you can. And it's really about making decisions about what your life will be 20 or 30 years from now. And you have to love yourself enough to want to do something different, instead of being fearful of, hiding away from the market or keeping your money in a buried in the backyard. That doesn't do anything either. I mean, that's the Bible story about the man with 3 people he gave 3 people, talents of silver, and one doubled his money. The other one doubled their money through investing and growth. And one just buried it in the ground and didn't create anything with it. And then, the guy came back, the nobleman came back, years later, like, why did you waste all that opportunity? He goes, I just wanted to keep it safe. I knew you'd be mad at me if I lost any money. He lived in an idea of no risk whatsoever. Really is a risk because, hey, we live in inflation, so costs are going up. So if your money doesn't go up, you're losing money. But anyway, that was a long story short, but that's my take.
I wanted to give an idea that, first of all, there is a reason to fear. Fear is a survival tool. And clearly when you're driving, Rick, they have cars in Houston, right?
Oh, do they ever have cars in Houston? Yes.
So if you drive without fear, you're probably going to run a red light or not ignore a stop sign, and you're going to get an accident, you're going to die or be paralyzed. So fear serves a purpose. Fear should not be a lifestyle. It should be a protection. There are times that I've been in places and I look around and my, quote, spidey senses just start tingling. And I know I need to be more aware of my surroundings. There's times when I literally slowed my car down and avoided a car running a light and smashing into me because I listened to that fear. But it should not be a way of life. And I just want to make that clear to everyone. There's a place for fear. It's not based on making all your life decisions. So I want to talk about fear versus love. And Rick, when I talk about them, you chime in wherever you like. But when you live out of fear, you're living in a fear of failure, a fear of poverty, a fear of rejection, a total fear of being harmed, abandonment. Like all those things are on your mind and ultimately leading up to a fear of death. Those are not great ways to live a life. I know people who live that way and everything is, I can't do this because of that. I can't do this because of that. I can't. And I'm just here to say, I hope we can snap someone out of that way of thinking and living.
Yeah, the fear of change is a big thing. Fear of success, fear of failure, but really, it's fear of change. You stay stuck where you are because that's what you know, and people often won't get out of the rut they're in because they don't know what something different would feel like or look like.
And also, I would say this: that all racism, sexism, homophobism, all the other things that one group of people hates about another is fear-based. It's definitely not love-based. And so it's all about protecting, feeling superior. It's all about a lot of things, but none of it is about love. And again, it's a part of another fear-based lifestyle. And once countries start to tear themselves apart by separating in that way, everybody's wealth goes down.
Interesting.
So Another aspect of fear then, if we talk about health, and Rick, you're going to talk about wealth in a few seconds, is I don't want to, if you don't love yourself, you're going to make poor food choices. If you don't love yourself, you're going to make poor exercise and movement choices. And I think the essence of taking care of yourself is love, because you want to have health for retirement and live a long, long time. Now, I will say there are people who overdo working out and overdo eating, and they sort of become on the scale of anorexic. But the idea is if you love yourself, you will take care of your body because it's the only one you have. What might loving yourself financially look like, Rick?
Loving yourself financially is realizing that if you're not where you want to be financially right now, nothing's going to change unless you change your mind about money. Money is just a tool that we use to buy assets, to buy enjoyment, recreation. But part of the money that you make now needs to go towards buying your future lifestyle, and having a long-term view of what that looks like is helpful, because most people are barely making ends meet, but they're doing Starbucks and fast food or smoking, or they're wasting hundreds of dollars. The average person blows $23 a day. If you take $5 a day, you can actually over a few decades have a six-figure retirement slush fund that otherwise you would just blow and not have anything at all. So love yourself enough to realize that what I'm doing today is not getting me where I want to be in the future.
So I want to throw some terms out there for you, Rick, that help people understand what exactly is managing your money out of fear. Number one is keeping up with the Joneses. And you call it plastic crap, you call it Starbucks for coffee, you call it a lot of different things. But you spending your money on things you don't need is living out of fear that you're going to miss out on this great thing. And you need to keep up your status. So whether it's your wardrobe, the car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the going out and needing to buy everybody rounds of drinks, all that stuff deteriorates from your retirement, and you're not really loving yourself or even those people. You're living out of fear because you're trying to maintain a status that you really can't afford to maintain. Quick thought on that, Rick.
Yeah, we live in a microwave society, so people are really quick to put down a credit card because if they want to have it right now, and they lie to themselves about, I'll pay it off when I get paid, but they're spending their paycheck already. It's not going to make it. So they get in that credit card debt trap, and then they're paying interest on crap that's already broken or experiences they've already had. The dinner out that cost $200 will wind up costing $400 if you put it on a credit card, because people don't pay things off. They can't. They're too busy keeping up with the Joneses.
And so the second element then of creating wealth for retirement is the ability to make more money. Now, Rick, you and I have been in a mastermind group together for 3 years now. And I know I speak for myself. I'll let you decide if you want to speak for yourself. But there are times we literally make fear-based decisions about our marketing and our daily activities to grow our business.
I had a call the other day with a marketing guy that he's got a really interesting program that I think would help me do a lot of good things, but it's $5,000. And my fear brain kicked in of, nope, that's too risky. I don't know if it is or not, but I could feel the scarcity. I can't invest $5,000 and not know what's going to happen. Could be good, probably would be good, but it could be bad. And that's like, can't do it. Sorry.
And so I do it almost literally daily. I'm going to confess something, Rick, that you know that I struggle with the idea of making direct one-on-one contacts, and that's 100% fear-based. If you are afraid to have a conversation with someone because of the consequence of that conversation, you are living, in that case, a fear-based existence. And I also feel fear when it comes to posting to social media at times. Not as much as the one-on-one contacts, but there's content that I'd love to produce that I don't produce it because of fear of social media flashback or feedback. Are there places in your life, Rick? Now, for you, it's more what used to be going to the gym. I know it's a different topic, but talk about how you used to feel about going to the gym and the working out, and how maybe fear-based might have stopped you from doing those things, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I was recovering from some back problems, and I started going back to the gym for the first time, and I was trying to do good, but it's weird that I couldn't lift what I used to be able to lift. My muscles had atrophied because I wasn't using them for 6 months, and then it became, well, I don't want to go to the gym and work out because I'll just feel bad about my lack of progress or my regression. Um, it was a fear of, I don't want to know how out of shape I'm in, so I'm not going to go work out so I can get back in shape. That's just stupidity. But that was the fear I had of, I don't want to know how I can't lift 200 pounds anymore. I don't want to know I can only lift 150 because I don't want that to be real to me. I want to live in that dream of I could still do whatever I want, but I'm not going to do what I need to do because I don't want to find out I can't.
So you
To me,
said the
that's
word
such a stupid.
you said the word stupidity, and I just want to say that that's fear of making a bad decision is like making a bad decision because if you don't make a decision, you're ultimately making a decision. Fear of not doing something to improve your life is actually making that fear real. And I want everyone to understand what you just said is beautiful and real. Anything that we say we should be, if the only reason you make a decision about going to the gym and I make a decision about contacting people and posting to social media is because we know that's what we need to do. We know it, but our fear talks us out of it. And I'm hoping that someone is hearing me say this knows, man, I should be doing this. I should tell. How about something as simple as telling the person you love them? Do you know how many people are afraid to do that? Well, what if they don't say it back? What if they don't do this? What if they look at me and, well, you know what? If you want to be loved, you got to be loving. And if someone doesn't love you and you love them, I'd want to know that. But our fear keeps us from doing it.
Yeah, again, it goes back to being vulnerable with people and not being afraid of being rejected or not being afraid of being disappointed because we're human. We're going to disappoint each other. But if I want more out of my life, I have to be willing to step out of my comfort zone and express emotions, talk to people, talk to strangers about their money, um, promote webinars that my first one was terrible, but hey, I'm learning how to better communicate with people online just because it's something I need to do to help them as well as grow my business and I'm becoming more of a well-rounded person. Garrett White says you can become more, or Jim Rohn actually says to do more and have more, you have to become more. And that involves a certain amount of risk. So if I didn't take those risks, I lived in fear, I let that hinder me, I wouldn't be growing the way I am.
So I think that the interesting as we wind down another episode of the Creating Health and Wealth Retirement podcast is this. There is no such thing in the history of mankind as a success that didn't involve risk. Most throughout history, that risk was risk of death. Right now, mostly our risk is risk of rejection, being made fun of, and failure. But rarely ever do we risk our lives for death. And so if you want success, you, Rick, me, everybody, there's risk involved. And when you don't take the steps to avoid that risk, you're legitimately living your life out of fear, and you will never get what you want. You will never create the life you want, the body you want, the income you want, the retirement you want, the relationship you want. But if you live in love, you are going to have setbacks. You're going to get kicked in the butt. You're going to get slapped in the face. You're going to get rejected. But at some point, if you keep doing it, you're going to find your person. You're going to find your way to make money. You're going to find your way to better manage your money, and it'll all be worth it. And so when we talk about health and wealth for retirement, and I throw in love occasionally, I'm telling you, if you don't take the risk today, you're going to have a long, miserable, lonely, broke retirement if you don't do that. And that's the message I wanted to bring by presenting this episode of the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast, Rick. Final thoughts on this topic.
Life is hard, but living in fear of how life might be just boxes you in a mental prison that keeps you stuck where you are. So take a risk, take a step out of that comfort zone, break free of the prison that you're living in. It doesn't have to be the way it is now, tomorrow.
So one of my mentors, his name is Alex Hermosi. He says if you do anything for a year, you'll become great at it. You will learn how to become great at it. And we suggest it every time. When we look at our podcast, Rick, the first episode was awful. The first 10, we did a promo. First 10, and finally at episode 23, we felt like it was worth sharing. And if we had given up on 10 or 15, we wouldn't be one worth sharing. And I think it's true of everything that everyone wants in life. Here's a technical term. You're going to suck the first time you do anything. First time you do everything. Babies suck when they take their first crawl, their first step, their first walk without their parents' help. Everything. We suck at it. We have to learn how to be great. And you cannot learn how to be great at anything if all your decisions are made with fear, as opposed to making them with love. Rick, any last comments? And you have an idea for next week's show, I believe.
Yeah, it kind of goes along with its living in fear versus love. Last comments. Hey, life's hard. You don't have to go it alone. Get some help from people like Mark and I. If we want to talk about your health or your finances, there's plenty of resources online. But you have to get off the couch, go to the gym, take some risks, do something to move yourself forward to what you want in the future. And go ahead. What is your closing comments? And I'm going to give everybody a preview of next week.
My closing comments is live, make decisions, take actions based on love of what you want, not fear of what you don't want.
And so to further that, next week we'll talk about if not now, then when? What are you waiting for?
That sounds exciting. Right on the heels of live out of love instead of fear. If not now, when? Rick, if someone wants to talk to you about helping them manage their money, what would they do?
Go to my website, bankingforyourself.com. That's the word FOR for bankingforyourself.com. And Mark, how do they find you?
They're going to have to look at the footnotes underneath this episode that they're looking at for my contact information, because I'm in the process of revamping my business and changing it a little bit. And I'm actually going to make it more, helping people live this thing of love to be able to help create the better body for retirement. So that's all I got for right now. Look at the footnotes of this and go from there. I'm taking a risk. I'm living out of love, and I'm practicing what I preached in this episode. Rick,
good job.
Say goodbye.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. If not now, then when? What are you waiting for?
That's right. Creating health and wealth for retirement has to start someday. It can't start when you retire. So why not let it start right now?